questioning me, but my heart is enlarged to you. Then he goes on to say in verse 12, he says, ye are not straitened in us, but ye are straitened in your own bowels. Another translation that might say, you are not restricted in us, but you are restricted in your own affections or lusts. So what Paul is saying is, he said, you are the ones who have restricted your love towards me. Why? Because you have been deceived by another gospel, by another preacher, and now your love towards me has been, you've restricted it. You've cut it off. Okay? So we see that strain going on in the church, between Paul and the Corinthian church. So now, and I showed y'all that to say that this is Paul's response in biblical separation. His strain with the church, this is how he responds, by telling them to be separate. Be ye separate from unbelievers. Okay? So, now I'm gonna give y'all MacArthur's 5 reasons for biblical separation. And I know a lot of times when we come into 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 14, we immediately give it merit. We immediately give it to marriage, the application of marriage. Okay, you're not supposed to be married to an unbeliever. And that's true. You can't use that application for the scripture. But it has so much going on more than marriage. You have to remember that the primary issue in Corinth was not that they were marrying unbelievers. That was not the primary issue. Can it be applied to this? Of course it can. But there was so much more going on in Corinth that we need to pull out of this scripture. Right? So I wrote down a couple of things where we can apply this to our lives. First of all, and I like the way that MacArthur talked about it. He said there needs to be a biblical separation from unbelievers in all spiritual and religious matters. All spiritual and religious matters. So for one, I wrote down matters of worship. Matters of worship. I mean, an unbeliever is not going to get up here and give a good speech. I mean, an unbeliever is not going to, if we had a choir, there should not be a bunch of unbelievers in the choir. They are singing to a God that the Bible says that they hate. Doctrine. An unbeliever is not going to teach me the Bible. They don't have the Spirit. They cannot understand the things of God. Ministry. We're not going to go out and do ministry with an unbeliever. I thought about this. Okay, say somebody called Parade and said, hey, we have a Hope and Help for Humanity function going on, and we want your church to be a part of it. We like, oh, are y'all believers? Oh, no. We just love the humanism. We just love to help people. Okay? So say we go down there with them. Say one of us messed up and we didn't read this scripture. And we didn't do ministry with an unbeliever. When we get to Haiti, when we get on the plane, we get to Haiti, we out there, we want to preach the gospel. They want to just feed people. So we try to do ministry with people who really don't want us to preach the message. Why? They say, oh, you're offending them. They're victims. I hear they tell you today, I don't care how many earthquakes hit Haiti, there's not one person there that's a victim when it comes to the things of God. They hate God. They're not victims. I'm not being harsh, but you have to understand that they are haters of God. And we do have sympathy in people, and we would help them and feed them. But they are not victims in the things of God. Let's just show them the love of God. They need to know about the wrath of God, because it will still come down upon them after the earthquake. So you can't do ministry with an unbeliever. It's not going to work. He wants to feed, you want to preach. It's not going to happen. And the last thing I said we can apply this to is just our lifestyles and our lives. Applying this to our relationships with people. Of course, we talk about marriage. Applying this to that. So we need to separate ourselves from unbelievers in worship, in doctrine, in ministry, in our lives. And we need to separate ourselves from their influence. As MacArthur said, from all spiritual and religious matters. So, I guess I'm going to give you MacArthur's 5 reasons for biblical separation. And reason number 1 is, kind of funny, it's totally irrational. Totally irrational for a believer and an unbeliever to be yoked together. So let's read verse 14 real quick. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. He says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion has light with darkness? I believe Paul was a little bit sarcastic sometimes. Sometimes when he writes as, he said, I remember one time in 2 Corinthians 11, he says, put up with me in my foolishness just for a little while. And then he goes on to say, but in here he asks a practical question. What communion has light with darkness? The answer really is none, once you really think about it.